As a Korean language enthusiast and a Korean history buff, I can confidently say that Korean is a beautiful language and one of the most fascinating languages in the world. Korean is the 16th most popular language in the world, with 78 million speakers. It is one of the few languages that fascinates in cultural aspects and entertainment, and the Koreans have remarkable popularity and strength. Korea has a rich culture, and the acquisition of the Korean language gives you the opportunity to experience all the elements of a strong, vibrant culture, a perfect blend of modernity and tradition. There are many reasons why Korean is the best language for learning. As someone who has been interested in Korean for a very long time, I will list some of the reasons below. Competitiveness. While there are a lot of languages in the world, it's hard to get into one language and master it within a relatively short period of time. You can probably do it if you're good enough and try hard enough, but it's rare. Compare it to the study of a foreign language that you've been studying for a while. There's a very high chance that you'll never master it unless you spend a lot of time trying. Learning a new language, however, is different. You don't have to try so hard to get better at it, and you can actually compete with other students in the process. Learning the Korean language can help you gain more than a superficial understanding of your favorite songs and television shows, whether to stimulate interest in Korean culture or to captivate your interest in the Korean culture. Most Korean music and cinema fans use subtitles and online translations. Learning Korean can also help you get a deeper and more meaningful understanding of Korean songs or shows. Learning Korean will also make it easier to learn other Asian languages. Many students begin learning Korean to achieve success in a Korean career or maybe as a hobby. However, learning Korean has a long and fascinating history. The first people to speak Korean were the ancient Silla kingdom, which existed from the 3rd to 9th century. Before this, the Korean peninsula was under the rule of China and Japan. The two giants were tough negotiators and often had to call for ambassadors, and they were not satisfied with the outcome of their negotiations. The ambassadors of Silla kingdom, known as or Makyugyam, had to be extremely diplomatic because Chinese and Japanese diplomats were used to a hierarchical culture. In other words, they were extremely refined and well-bred. However, the situation was different at Silla kingdom. Believe it or not, Korean grammar is one of the easiest parts of learning a language. One of the enormous advantages of Korean is the absence of the need to conjugate verbs, at least as one would in many other languages. Korean is relatively easy compared to other languages such as French or Spanish, where you would have to spend hours learning the conjugates of different verbs with different tenses for each topic. You can do a lot of things on your own, and you're definitely better off than doing nothing, but there's one important thing that you can't do without studying and practicing. By studying, I mean doing anything, not just going to the library and reading textbooks. You can't just pick up a Korean textbook from a shelf and expect to learn Korean by studying it. There are some good Korean textbooks out there, but as a language enthusiast, I prefer studying Korean via other people's vocabulary.